Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we always start by reading the mission statement for the Danvers Public Schools, which is, the Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. Is there anybody in the audience that is taping video, audio, tonight's meeting? No, okay. All right, then we will get underway. First, I want to point out that the superintendent is not with us tonight. She's otherwise engaged in important business, and so we have both assistant superintendents that it takes both of them to take her place, right? It's on TV, so she'll see that. We'll start with items of interest. Do either of the assistant superintendents have any items of interest that they'd like to bring to our attention tonight?
We have two items that we'd like to share. Two articles that appeared in the Salem News and the Danvers Herald highlighting the commissioner's visit to Danvers High School. He had nothing but exciting things to say, and we're proud that Ms. Sims' value from his visit is actually going to be presenting at his kickoff to what education will look like in the future in a couple of weeks out at UMass Amherst. So she's one of about 10 teachers who were invited to present and share her lesson with educators from all across the state, and we'll also have two students, Dr. Colombino and Dr. Dana, will all be in attendance for that event. So we're excited about that. The second item is with the Danvers Art Association, the Holton Richmond Middle School all-year art students put on a fabulous show last Friday night.
Yep.
It was very well received. There was about 60 students worth of work there. Proud to see all of the students' work, and there's a slideshow of the pieces of art attached to your agenda.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Anybody on the board have any items of interest? We all good? Good.
I got one.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank the administration, Keith, and our chair for the presentation at the selectmen's meeting Saturday as they reviewed our budget, and it went very well. So thank you for everybody's hard work.
Great, thanks. Anybody else? Good. And anybody in the audience, is there anybody with something they want to say? No, good, okay. Then we'll go to the student rep.
Hi. So I'll just get right into it. At Great Oak Elementary School, first grade students are working to improve their reading stamina and setting goals each day for their reading workshop time. Each day, students pick a reading strategy to practice that day. Students are crashing words together, stretching words out, and looking for word parts when coming to an unknown word. When the lesson is over, students share with one another how they use the strategies in the book. And, as a part of the reading unit, fifth graders are researching the pros and cons of serving chocolate milk in schools. They are researching the different nutritional values of white milk and chocolate milk and other considerations. Students are writing persuasive essays to share their research and opinions with the principal. At Highlands Elementary, kindergarten students just finished up a how-to writing unit where they showed off their skills of all they knew how to do. Some topics included how to walk your dog and how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They've recently started their opinion writing unit. Some opinion topics that have been discussed are not running in the hall and why we shouldn't hide books in our classroom. We can't wait to see what other opinions they come up with. In art class, students in grades 5 and 4, come up with a single inspiring word to describe themselves, wrote it in cursive, and then did a consecutive outline with marker. When they were all done with the words, they connected them to make a consecutive line of words. The words hung up all the way down the art room hallway. Some of the words the student used were listen, believe, shine, pride, discover, and thrive. At Riverside Elementary, during library classes, Riverside students are offered a monthly thematic makerspace. That's cool. When engaging in these makerspace activities, students are promoted to explore ideas through the encouragement of problem solving, coping skills, communication, and perseverance, as well as imagination. This collaborative and creative environment allows students to engage in maker activities and design thinking experiences. Students have stated that these monthly experiences are their favorite days at school, and that they enjoy getting to engage in this activity that connects them with an interest they have. Additionally, Ms. Shea, Riverside's librarian aide, and Ms. Shekels, elementary district librarian, have seen an increase in cooperation and collaboration. Students are saying things like, guys, if we work together, we can solve this problem. Library time is an exciting space not only for reading books, but also provides an experience that supports social emotional learning and creates an atmosphere of calm, peace, and community. At Smith's Elementary, first graders have been focusing on knowing and showing their understanding of combinations of 10, with 2 addends, that's a big word, and sometimes 3 or more addends. They do this in a variety of ways, through games, use of small colored tools, and/or with pencil and paper. The students are working to solidify their knowledge so that they can easily use the combinations of solving problems that require them to add a single-digit and double-digit numbers to 10 and multiples of 10. Literary Month has kicked off at Smith School. Last week, students and staff participated in Read a T-shirt Day. This week, Smith students welcomed community readers into their classrooms. In addition, children have been encouraged to complete a literacy challenge, which includes various reading activities, such as practicing reading with excitement, reading a nonfiction text, and discovering something new, and asking an adult to read with you. At Thorpe Elementary, last week, members of the Leading Together team met with our Leading Together consultant to review the protocols we have presented to staff to date and how they can be utilized so that they have a greater impact on building relational trust amongst staff throughout the building. And during science, students in one of the second grade classrooms have recently begun learning about why no chalta trees are growing in the fictional Bengal Tiger Reserve in India. Students are plant scientists investigating what the chalta trees need to survive. Students are collecting and analyzing data to solve the mystery. In one of the other second grade classrooms, students are creating different glue recipes to see how different recipes have different properties. Students are glue engineers and are challenged to create a glue for their school that meets their needs. The culminating activity for students will be a presentation for their classmates while using evidence as to why their glue is best. Finally, our second graders in another classroom are working on figuring out if Director Higgins should choose the fictional Oceanside Recreation Center because there is a flagpole that is much closer to the cliff than it used to be. Additionally, there is a nearby cliff that collapsed overnight. Is the center still safe? The students are geologists working to investigate different landforms, what they're made of, and how stable they are. At Holton Richmond Middle School, HRMS guidance counselors spend time in classrooms teaching and providing direct instruction on a variety of topics. This year, the 6th graders have learned about positive and healthy friendships. In 7th and 8th grade, students have begun to learn about the high options they have begun considering career interests. 6th grade continues to work through the DARE curriculum with Officer Kalala, which focuses on decision-making and being resistant to drugs and alcohol. As trimester 3 winds down, students in exploratory courses are completing projects and units of study. Topics include programming of robots, using computer-aided design programs, and the creation and performance of original percussion compositions. The trimester art courses have produced beautiful landscape paintings, papier-mâché frogs, and clay coil pots. And finally, at Danvers High School, the winter sports season is wrapping up here at DHS. Our student athletes always make us proud of how they represent our community. Congrats to all the teams and athletes for a successful season. Max Leet defended his state title in wrestling, and Anthony Spignisi qualified for a national in the 200 meters. Go Falcons. Our extracurricular clubs are also shining at DHS. 137 students competed at the DECA state competition, with 26 moving on to compete at the national level coming up in Orlando. The DHS Acts production of Romeo and Juliet won at prelims and qualified for the semifinal round of the Drama Fest competition. Individual winners of awards included Polaris Hall for costume design, Gavin Nolan, Sophia Cervizio, and Christina Cervizio for set design, Ethan West and Clea Matt for projections, and Clea Matt for acting.
Clea.
Thank you.
When's the next round?
This next round is this Saturday at Danvers High School. Danvers goes on at 1:30, and if you can't make it then, we have a preview performance on Thursday at 7 in the auditorium.
All right. Great. Thank you, Clea. As always, great job. Thank you. All right. So we'll go on to information from the superintendent.
We are excited to have the Highlands School here this evening to start. We have 1st and 4th grade students to talk to us about Reader's Workshop, and then we're excited we're going to follow that up with a presentation from the high school so that we can see how our reading and writing programs connect from where we learn it to how we can apply it in the real world with editorials to the New York Times. So we're excited to see the connections this evening. So we'll invite Ms. Jones up with her students, and she'll introduce them and the teachers.
So I'm going to start us off. I don't need the double stool. I am tall enough to be seen over the podium. So welcome. Thank you, students, parents, teachers, for coming and supporting us tonight. And I'm excited to show you kind of our progressions through the reading workshop from first grade and fourth grade. So we use Lucy Calkins' reading workshop. It is a workshop model where we do 10-minute mini lessons and then time for independent or partner reading, and also time for the teacher to engage in small group strategy work and conduct reading conferences with individual students. Usually a mid-workshop teaching point is conducted and the teacher emphasizes and draws attention to a student who is utilizing the targeted strategy or reading behavior. You're going to get to see examples of all these in just a minute. At the end of reading workshop, there's a 5-minute share where the classroom teacher selects a student or group of students to highlight a good reading behavior or strategy. And the major emphasis during this time is on independently reading a Just Right book. And that is a book that a student can read with 95% accuracy and comprehension. And this is the one thing that all reading experts agree upon. So that said, I'm going to invite up Summer and Ethan to show you something that they did from their reading workshop baggies. Can you guys both scoot so you're good? Yes, we can.
This is a book from my reading workshop bag. I like this book because the beavers have a problem to solve. The problem was the water was going down. The beavers fixed the dam. During reading workshop, I am working on my understanding. I am checking that I get it and thinking about what might happen next. This is a book from my reading workshop bag. I like this book because the rat Steve is funny. He can't open a simple door. I am working on thinking about my reading. I ask myself, does it look right? Does it sound right? Does it make sense?
And now my friends, Bryn and Penny, are going to show you how they partner read.
In the middle so we both can.
And then you would read it to each other. Nice job, ladies. So in the fall, the first graders engaged in a unit called the Word Detectives Use All They Know to Solve Words unit. So, and every day they received an envelope with their mission. And the Word Detective must have known I was coming here tonight because she sent me a mission. So, that said, and it looks like this, and there's a picture of the Word Detective up there for you to see. It says, Word Detectives, are you ready for even harder work? Your next step is to decide which words you need to solve and which words you can read in a snap. But that's not all. You also need to learn more and more snap words. After all, a great Word Detective needs to remember a lot of words. Pay careful attention over the next few days because your teacher has lots to teach you about remembering words. We hope you are ready for this important assignment. Good luck. Can you believe she found me? She knew I was coming here. So my friends, Odin and Addie, are going to come up and show you what it means to do a snap word. Odin, be careful getting up. Big voice.
My name is Olin. A snap word is a word that you can read quickly. A snap. Our word wall word, we use our word wall words, our word ring words, and trick words from foundations to add to our list of snap words. Snap words help us become better readers.
Good job. All right, Addie. 2 steps up. You okay? There you go. It's tough getting up 2 stools. Pretty impressive.
Hi, my name is Addie. Some words we read are hard at first, and then when we practice, they become snap words too. When I first read chewing, I did not know the word. I knew that it had a digraph, CH, and the glued sound, ING. which I used to help me figure out the word. Then I used the picture and the other words in the story to help me decide if I chose the correct word.
Nice job. Be careful, get down. So first graders took this very seriously, and they even had a song. And I have a little video of them doing the song actually in Miss McKinnon's room. It says they were talking about we're not going to be stopped by tricky words.
As you read your books, what you can do? Look closely. When the word is tough, start to end. What you can do? Look closely. I ain't afraid of no word. I ain't afraid of no word.
Nicely done, my friends. Nicely done.
Awesome.
Cute.
So after their word detective units, just to wrap up with first grade, they engage in 5 other units that you can see there. Learning about the world, reading nonfiction, readers have big jobs to do, and then some other units, becoming avid readers. Now that's back up there. I don't have them all memorized. Meeting characters and learning lessons, a study of story elements, and then readers get to know characters by performing their books. So nice job, first grade. And then here's just some pictures of all the kids that were here tonight, either partner reading or doing their Flashlight Friday reading. So, all right, so grade 4, they engaged in a historical fiction book clubs. So this 4th grade unit is about interpreting complex texts through a variety of historical fiction. The students have prior exposure to book clubs during the Reading the Weather unit, and this is really a higher level of comprehension which requires students to engage in conversations and write about the texts at the 4th grade level. So that said, here's just some pictures of book clubs in action. They love their book clubs. And then Elliot's going to come up and talk about the specific skill of turn to nonfiction to deepen understanding. Yeah, you just need one. I was too busy worrying about my advancer.
Hi, my name is Elliot, and I'm in Mrs. Buller's 4th grade class. During our historical book club unit, we were split into groups and given the choice to read a few different books. My group chose a book that took place in the Great Depression. This book is called The Mighty Miss Malone by Christopher Paul Curtis. I used different viable sources of nonfiction to deepen my understanding of the Great Depression. I researched topics like transportation, jobs, food, and much more. This helped me understand the book on a new level. For example, on pages 175 to 179, the family rode the rails, aka hopped a train illegally, to get to their new house. When I researched this, I found out that riding the rails was actually a common mode of transportation, especially for people who couldn't afford other, more expensive transportation. It helped me understand the book because it helps me visualize that part more clearly. This also helps me empathize with the Malone family, the main characters of the story. They were very poor during this time, and were forced to move out of their home in Gary, Indiana, causing them to have to move to Flint, Michigan. As an extension, I was even able to make a Google Slides presentation about the Great Depression to share with my classmates.
There's more 4th graders doing their book clubs. And then the next one to come up is Miss Emily, and she's going to show us how you determine themes and support them with evidence from across the story.
Hi, I'm Emily Sullivan. I'm in Miss Mark's 4th grade class. During Reader's Workshop, one book my book club read together was Caleb's Story, written by Patricia McLaughlin. It is a part of the Sarah Plain and Tall series. During reading, my club and I spent a lot of time determining the theme of our books. One strategy I've learned for determining the theme was to pay close attention to the characters. We looked for the patterns in their behavior, what they said, and how they reacted. In Caleb's Story, my book club and I decided the theme was kindness. I can support this theme with lots of evidence. Throughout the story, the main characters helped others in need and showed kindness toward one another in many ways. In connection to our reading, my club and I worked together to write literary essays. In our essays, we included quotes from the text to support what
why we chose our theme. Our themes my classmates and I discussed were courage, perseverance, and racism and friendship. In conclusion, we're all officially theme experts now.
And more pictures of them doing book clubs. And lastly, we have Ellie Wyman talking about the realizing that a character's perspective is shaped by the times and his or her roles.
Hello, my name is Ellie Wyman, and I'm in Miss Doucette's 4th grade class. My book club group decided to read Glory Be, written by Augustus Scattergood. In our book club group, we spent a lot of time discussing how a character's perspective is shaped by the times and by their roles. The book, Glory Be, takes place after the Civil War when there was still segregation in the southern states. The main character, Glory, meets a new friend named Laura. She moved to Mississippi from the northern states. Laura had a different perspective than Glory, and she believed that all people should have equal rights no matter what their skin color. Glory believed that white people and black people should be separate, but her opinion began to change when Laura arrived and opened her eyes to a new world of equality. While I was reading this story, I thought that if I was Glory, I would know that it wasn't right to separate people based on their skin color because I grew up with everybody living together with equal rights and freedoms. I discussed this with my book club group, and some of us thought that Glory was a prejudiced character. We had to go back and look at the times, and we realized that she wasn't being mean. She just only knew what she grew up with during that time period in history. We realized that Glory's perspective and beliefs changed as the times changed, and she was introduced to new perspectives. My book club and I really enjoyed discussing how our character grew and changed throughout the story, and we wondered how our perspectives will change for us in another 50 years.
So as you can clearly see, the progression of teaching the foundational skills in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and then continuing on, that we go from children who are reading and learning to read all the way through K to 5. So thank you to the teachers, to the students, to the parents who brought you here, and other teachers that came to support us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Well done, great.
Anybody have any comments for the kids?
I think you all did a wonderful job, and you're amazing readers. Thank you so much for your presentation tonight, and thank you to the teachers. I had a quick question. Flashlight Friday readings? Can someone tell me what those are?
Who wants to come up here and say? Go ahead. Come on up, you guys. You're going to have to just stand on one, though, because you can come on up too, Summer. Tell them what Flashlight Friday is. Go ahead.
Flashlight Friday is when you turn off the lights and you have a flashlight next to you and you read with the flashlight so you can see the words.
Awesome. Do you enjoy that?
Oh, do you like it, Summer?
What?
Do you like it, Flashlight Friday? What's your favorite part about Flashlight Friday?
And you get to go with your partner and read like the book.
And the room is all dark.
Yeah, and it's like a scary book. You can like put the flashlight like close
So you
to
don't
it
get
and
scared.
then like up to it.
Do you read a lot of scary books, Summer? Yeah.
Thank you. That sounds awesome. Thank you very much.
I think if I tried that, I'd fall asleep. Everybody all set? Good. All right, guys. Great job. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Your friends from Danvers are coming.
Thank you.
Nice job,
Thanks,
girls.
Well done.
Great job, guys.
Thank you.
They just keep getting older.
Great.
That little guy's going to be on school committee.
I know.
Job.
Great
Well
job,
done.
guys.
Thank you.
Good
Good job.
Love the bow.
I'm going to hand it to John.
Thank you.
There you go.
Have a
It's
good
his.
night. Thank you. Good job.
Yeah.
Better reader than I was in first grade.
So next we're going to ask Mr. White and Mr. McGillen, along with one of their students, to come and talk to us about what all of this good base that we learn in the elementary school turns out to be when we get to the high school.
Great. Thank you. I'm John White. I'm a teacher here at the high school. One of the things we wanted to kind of showcase for you tonight is some of the work that the students at the high school have been doing with the New York Times. So a few years back, our curriculum director and the director at the high school brought to us the New York Times and the Learning Network. And with the Learning Network, there's we were given basically a chance to explore a number of different resources that were vetted by the high school that we could use to enhance the teaching. The Learning Network was one of them, and during the PD exploring it, found that we could use it in a number of different ways. Jay's going to talk about the writing prompts that are available. They have different contests. You can see they have different lesson plans available for teachers, and we're just going to highlight some of the things that we've been using. The sophomores just finished what is called a blackout poem, in which they take a New York Times article and they manipulated basically the article in order to create a poem, an original poem from the article. Additionally, I don't have a slide of it up here, but we've been doing some practice of reading nonfiction. And so the sophomore class was reading different articles about the effects of juuling and they read a feature story on a student actually from the town of Reading. And then we did a lot of practice on inferencing and reading skills and whatnot. But it was a New York Times feature story, and that was another vehicle for us to practice the reading skills that we continue to build at the high school, but to use something that is very timely and relevant to them. We use the time machine in a number of different classes, which is a great resource that the Learning Network provides. Basically, we have access to over 150 years of the original print editions of the New York Times, so that students who may be studying, if we're reading the things they carried and we're studying the Vietnam era, we can go back to the height of the war and we can read articles about that. We can go back and read articles about Fitzgerald or J.D. Salinger, just authors or basically the context in which a book is written. There's a number of ways in which in different classes as well, history classes and whatnot, they can use it. My third grade daughter was just asking about if we could take a trip on the Titanic 2, which is apparently going to go in 2022. So I think that's what inspired me when I brought up my example of something that I went in and I took the date 2 days after the Titanic. And here you see that we have full access to all the articles. You can even look at the different advertisements and whatnot that were there, and the kids gravitate to seeing the original articles and the layout, how dense actually the layout is from a graphic design standpoint as well. It's pretty interesting visually, the difference between media now and then. And they always love to look up their birthdays and find out what day they were born. And so it's been an interesting resource for us as well. And Jay's going to talk about some of the writing prompts that the students have been engaged with.
Thank you. So I'm Jay McGillen. I teach junior AP language with John White. And 2 years ago, before the 2017-2018 school year, John and I were talking about how we could improve the summer program, the summer work program for that AP course. And we decided to have our kids submit entries into the New York Times Summer Reading Contest. And basically during the summer, every week, the New York Times accepts submissions from students, and they ask one simple question, which is, what's the most interesting thing that you read this week in the news and why? And students post responses to something that they read. And at the end of the summer, the New York Times collects their favorite entries. They award winners, and you can see circled here, we had Megan Moralia was a runner-up with an article about whether or not Shakespeare should be taught in the high schools. And then Liam Breen was an honorable mention for an article about whether or not Tom Brady was successful successful as a 40-year-old as he was as a 30-year-old. We all know that's true. So a wide range of topics. And so the students we had them do 5 of those and submit those for the summer. And we liked it a lot because we wanted the students to start getting engaged in a more sophisticated way with the news and reading and getting information about what's happening outside of Danvers. As the school year continued, we kept using the Learning Network on pretty much a weekly basis. This year, for sure, for me, it was a gradual process last year, but this year, every week, more or less, I assigned the students a writing prompt from their student opinion page. So the editors of the Learning Network put together questions that they ask the students, and these questions can range from questions about what they value, what's important to them about their job. Is it money? Is it happiness? Is it a passion or a calling? So they have these serious topics about the students' beliefs and identity. They have questions about current events. I know they've asked questions about even some sensitive topics like the Me Too movement and R. Kelly situation. But then they also have lighter prompts like what would be your ideal dream house, or where would you most want to travel and why? So there's a variety of topics that they ask the students to write about. And what we like about these, I know John and I have talked a lot about this, what we like so much about them is that these are low floor, high ceiling activities. There's a really easy entry point. We usually offer some choice into what students are able to write about. They don't have, occasionally we'll assign specific prompts, but I usually let them choose from a variety of the week's prompts. They can pick one that appeals to them, that calls to them, and they'll post their comments on the New York Times website. So it's low floor, high ceiling. They're authentic questions. They ask really topical stuff that really, I think, and Ezra can speak to this a little bit later, but questions that are interesting for high school students to answer. And then the other really cool part, it's authentic. It's the New York Times. These students are getting to write and have their responses published on the Learning Network page. And every week, every Thursday, the Learning Network editors compile a list of the prompts that they like the best, or that they like the best from that week, and they post them and they give recognition to the students who wrote them. And you can see just a handful of examples of responses from Danvers High School students from the past 2 years. Honestly, probably just about everybody in my current class right now has been mentioned at one time or another, some students several times over, and it's awesome. They get really excited about being mentioned. And Danvers and John's students, I know too, I mean, every time I scroll through the selections that the editors put out, there's always Danvers students in there from our classes over the last 2 years. And it's our responses and the quality of the student work was so good that the New York Times reached out to John specifically to ask if we would take part in their webinar, which was a pitch to other schools to join the Learning Network and start using it. And so they were so proud. And they even singled out Danvers High School by name on their page to say, wow, we are just so proud of the work and that you guys have done. And I really take no credit for this. This is the student writing completely, because I don't grade a single one of these except for to show that they're submitted. It's the authentic experience of writing these for the New York Times that make it so compelling for the students and elevate the level of work. And just the last thing about it is the New York Times is really great. The writing doesn't have to be perfect to get published. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct. It doesn't have to support a specific opinion. They take all different types of viewpoints, and as long as the kids are engaged and interested and they write creatively and with passion, they can get mentioned by the New York Times. So John's going to now take back over and talk about the webinar a little bit.
So when we were contacted by the New York Times, the editors at the New York Times, there's 4 of them that are affiliated or out of the Teachers College at Columbia University, and they have a relationship with the Teachers College. They're very well-versed in writing instruction. They're all former teachers. They contacted us and said, we're hosting this international webinar in which we are trying to get educators to begin to use the resources, and we would like you and some of your students to be guests in that, on the webinar, which was an honor when it actually started to happen. I think and you saw the people that were joining from all over the world, and we're not talking about, just in the United States, but we have people from all over Europe and Asia. And there was educators, K to 12, there were college professors, there were curriculum directors, and they were there to listen to the time staff and to us. And Megan Moralia was another presenter for that. And so I just cut a quick clip of that so that you can hear them introduce the only school that was featured, which was Danvers High School, and we were just really proud of that.
In the last 2 years, we have started to we started getting so many amazing responses from students all over the world every week that we kind of thought it was a shame that, because to ourselves, there's 4 of us, and we're like chortling away in our cubicles and like in our Slack channel saying, look at this great thing a kid wrote. And we were like, we need to share this with the whole world. So we started something we call Current Events Conversation, which is essentially choosing what we think are the best comments every week and calling those kids out. We put their names in bold. We sometimes call out the whole school because we'll have schools like Danvers, who you're going to hear from, who range across all of our prompts. And you'll see their kids on like 8 different prompts that week. And we just wanted students and teachers to know we're listening. Nothing goes up on our site that we haven't read, and some of them just delight us so much that we decide to call them out. So here's an example. I think this was last week's, and we'll have another one up tomorrow. They go up on Thursdays. And we say what students are saying about, and then we pick 3 things that really kind of blew up that week. Last week it was how to treat robots. Apparently people are beating robots up. A thing to know. And kids had a lot to say about that. Resilience, classic classroom conversation, and then the notion of ghosting somebody on social media, which kids also obviously had a lot to say about. We have heard from teachers that students go wild when their names are called out. You can see here that they're hyperlinked to their actual comment. And we've heard from teachers across the country that kids love to open up our site on Thursdays to get excited for each other, even if their comment wasn't picked that week. And I do want to say that as a team, we don't just pick grammatically perfect comments. That's not what we're about. We see voice, we see a lot of spirit, we see an original idea or a original opinion that not every other kid is saying, or we see a kid responding to another kid. Oh, we're going to call that out. Those are behaviors we want to get more of. So I have a little story to tell you by way of introducing our guest, which is that we reached out to Danvers because their students were on our site so much that I think I wrote an email maybe to the principal and said, whoever's at Danvers, can you write me back? Like, your kids are great, and then that's how we hooked up with these people. But in that context, we actually learned that there was a student who was so excellent last year at commenting and wrote such, I don't know how to phrase this except to say they were emotionally thoughtful comments. Like, they were very intelligent, they were very, you could tell she did the reading, but they also were just such sensitive comments about issues like race, where sensitivity is really important, that we called this girl out in a special way and said, Megan Moralia, whoever you are, thank you for a year of great comments. Well, that's all we did. We never heard from her, but we learned that she was a Danvers student and that she had been so excited by being called out that this summer she came to New York from Massachusetts and took a picture of herself in front of the New York Times building. And we're so sad that she didn't phone us up, because we would have loved to buy this young woman lunch. Megan, we would still love to buy you lunch. So I'm going to now introduce to you the team from Danvers, who's calling in from Danvers. We hope the line works. And we have the teacher, John White, and Jay McGillen, who use the prompts regularly. And then we have Megan herself, who did the prompts last year. And then Ezra, who's in the class this year, who we call out frequently as well for his excellent contribution. So welcome, you guys. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Can you hear us?
Sure can.
Yeah, so welcome to all of you. And so maybe John and Jay, you could just begin by telling us your story about how you use the site, how you use these prompts in your class, what you teach, and what your experience has been.
And that's what we're doing here tonight. We're doing the same thing here, sharing what it is we've been doing with them. And to kind of piggyback on Jay's points as well, a lot of the work that they're doing, the reading they're doing, really helps them understand the world in which they live, understand the context in which we build arguments, and that's one of the skills that we're trying to hone is how do we ground our points in specific evidence that comes from the world around us. And in order to do that, we have to be aware of and read and expose ourselves to a number of different sources. So the New York Times is one in which we use a lot of the resources, but we talk about bias in media. We'll look at different resources and we'll talk about, well, let's look at Fox News in the way that's presented. Let's look at CNN. Let's look at some that are in the middle. And let's begin to talk about the importance of considering our sources and bias and being very aware of where we find our information. So Megan wasn't able to be with us tonight, but she was in New York this weekend. She has been accepted to the New York Times Summer Academy. So she was looking into a gap year next year to do some work with the New York Times. And instead, she's going to be going to the New York Times Academy, which Ezra will speak a little bit about. But they featured, again, some of her writing in the webinar. And we were just really proud of the work that Megan's done. And Jay's teaching Ezra this year, so I'll have him introduce Ezra.
Yeah, just want to say how proud I am of Ezra's work this year. He's contributed in a number of ways, really thoughtful responses. There's a couple here. Both of the ones on this slide presentation are responses about Danvers proper, so I think that's really exciting too. And Ezra was also accepted into the Academy at the New York Times for a summer program this summer as well. And so he's going to talk to you guys a little bit about how he and the other students respond to the prompts.
Hi, I'm Ezra. So when I started taking this class at the beginning of the year, of course, over the summer, we started doing these submissions. And then the kids we really started to like them and having them for homework assignments. And it was just a way to work on our craft as writers, but also it was really interesting topics, and being involved with current events on top of being able to write about them was really something special. And I think it really carried over into the classroom when we would come in the next morning and all the students would be talking about the submissions that we had done last night, and we would get into debates throughout the class and talk about all the topics, and everyone had their own opinions, but it was all civilized, and we were all able to kind of immerse ourselves into the kind of like articles and opinion questions that are on here. And it was just really a cool thing to mature a little bit, and we're getting older now, so it's being involved with current events is something that's really important, and I think learning that at this age is something that's really great, and the New York Times has helped us to do that. About the Academy, I think doing these submissions has like opened the door for me to find that writing is something that I really enjoy, and so I found out about the New York Times through the New York Times Academy, and I sent my submission. Mr. McGillen sent in a recommendation for me, and I found out the other day that I was accepted. That's a very exciting thing.
Congratulations.
I hope to continue making these submissions and staying involved with writing and the New York Times.
And we're hoping to continue the networking with the New York Times. They have internships for not only those wanting to go into journalism and writing, but all aspects of the business, whether it be the accounting or the marketing. So they have through the New York Times Academy, a number of different ways in which people can go, stay in New York, and have the opportunity to learn and network with people in the business. And that's what we're trying to do, is create these extensions for our students to be able to figure out kind of the different pathways that they want to go down and ways in which they can do that.
Great, thank you guys. Comments? Mary Beth, you look like you're ready to.
I think it's great. I think the interactive part of this is what engages the students and the real what's going on in the world today. It's engaging them, like you said, into what's happening in the world. In college, we had to buy the New York Times every day because I was a communications major, but we only bought it to read it. There was no any engagement of writing anything, and I think this is just is a great thing, and I thank you for doing it. And I want to congratulate you, Ezra, on your acceptance to the Academy, and I hope that it's everything you hope it is, and it's certainly something. Now, is this something that's only for juniors? Or did you say like any class? Like how do kids take part in this?
Basically, it's a resource that everyone at the high school actually has access to the New York Times. Everybody has a paid account to the New York Times. And so all teachers can use it. I think it's one thing that more and more teachers are starting to find out more of the resources that are there, and seeing what they can do with it. In fact, I just forwarded some information to the stats teachers about a webinar that they're doing on using different resources in order to teach math. So everybody in the school has it. We've been using it a lot in the AP curriculum, but as well, as I mentioned, the sophomores have been doing a lot of the submissions and work with it. So we just continue to realize how much is there. And
it's awesome because I did read a couple of them because I believe the high school's Twitter had tweeted out a couple times, and I read these articles and I was like, these are students? The articles are awesome. Like you would think of professional writers. So it was, I agree that the what they were writing about did like the emotion, and you could really feel it through the writing. So it was awesome. Thank you very much.
Eric?
Yeah, I think in terms of, isn't it kind of neat that we're at a time in the world when, a student in Danvers, Massachusetts can comment on an article in the New York Times and actually have it show up and be noticed. And that can happen to anybody in the country based on the quality of thought and the quality of expression. That's a wonderful thing and a very validating thing, Ezra, that you've gotten, as they say, called out, which sometimes has a bad, but that's great. That is wonderful, and congratulations on going to the Academy. It's just a wonderful way to engage with what's going on in the world right now. The other thing that intrigued me, because I'm both a news junkie and a history junkie, is the ability to use the archives for the New York Times. And, I noticed you had the article about the Titanic, and that's a wonderful thing. And God help me, I'm going to admit this, in my spare time, I like to use the Boston Globe archives. And sometimes not for a specific story, but to look at a particular time period. And so, I've been perusing the sort of 1938, 1939 timeframe as World War II is approaching. And go through a couple of weeks and just take a look at any given day, and you can sort of get a feel for what the atmosphere of the time was in ways that a textbook really doesn't tell you. You always know what the facts are, but to be able to get the feel of the time is something you can only get through those first-person sources. So it's a wonderful tool. I'm so glad they all have access to the Times. So glad what you're doing with it. So thank you very much.
Dave?
Yeah, I was taking lots of notes as you were speaking. Great presentation. The courses sound absolutely amazing. My daughters have been fortunate to have both of you as teachers, and you made a huge impact. And watching them just kind of light up at some of the topics that they've come home and started talking about, and I have to kind of do a Google search to see if I know what I'm talking about on the subject. It's amazing. But you'd mentioned a few words that are so buzzworthy. That it's topical. That you can look up a whole variety of subjects, which is amazing, and that it's authentic. That students are engaged and that they have the option to talk about different subject matters, which is amazing. I also wrote down the fact that you talk about bias in the media, which I think is so huge these days. Mary Beth mentioned, reading something on Twitter. There's tons of stuff on Twitter, and you have no idea most of the time where that source is and whether it's a legitimate source or how much bias is in that source. There's bias in everything, but if you can look at, a major bias, from a site, I think that's amazing to give students that opportunity to, or perspective, I guess I would say. And I think congrats to the New York Times for doing this. This is amazing service that they're providing. And I'm just wondering, Ezra, what's involved with the academy? Like, how you actually go to New York City for how long?
Yeah, so it's a two-week trip to New York. We stay in dorms, and you had to, with your application, you had to submit your choice of classes, and they assign you, you give a few choices that you would want to do, and they assign you to what they think you fit best in. So I was put into the sports storytelling class, so I'm very excited about that. It'll be a cool thing to.
And do you take the classes at a college or at the New York Times office?
Yeah, so it's at NYU, I think a lot of the classes are at, and then there's a lot of city submersion, so we'll go out and take trips with classmates and with dorm members and things like that, and we'll go and check out the city and learn through that as well as being in classrooms. So.
That's so cool. And one of the other things you mentioned that I thought was so telling is that you said when you're discussing these with your classmates, everyone has their own opinions, but you discuss it in, what did you say, a civilized manner, which that doesn't happen a lot these days. So, thank you for encouraging that, and thank you as a student for, viewing it from that perspective, because that's really important. So that's it for my babble. Thanks.
I'm glad to see that the reports of the demise of the New York Times are greatly exaggerated and is in fact not failing, but is in fact thriving. So thank you. It's very awesome. What is just the state of journalism at DHS and in general? I mean, we hear a lot about DECA, we hear a lot about sports, we hear a lot about other areas. I was editor of my high school newspaper. Journalism is very important. I feel like we don't hear a lot about it. Has it been woven into a larger context of writing? Because that's what it looks like the New York Times is. It's not just journalism reporting. It's become this entire ecosystem of back and forth conversation and thought. So can you just describe what it's like at Danvers now, if journalism as a thing exists, or has it evolved?
It does. I can't really. There is a course in journalism. We do have a school paper. We're not affiliated with that, so I don't feel too comfortable speaking about exactly what their mission is and how they operate.
Yeah.
What I can say as somebody who's teaching a nonfiction writing class, and I think Mr. White would agree with me here, that our goal is to expose them to kind of journalism today, what people are writing, and then to give them the skills as nonfiction writers to be able to approach any type of text, no matter whether they're going to write sports nonfiction or whether they would write an opinion piece, which is a huge part of the course that we're starting now, and informational text. So the design of this course is to be able to give them the skills to be able to ask the right questions, to be able to consider whatever it is whatever writing they need to take on, they have the skills to be able to do it. So we don't get into writing for the newspaper specifically, articles, but we do train them in the core skills of nonfiction writing. So those would certainly apply if they ever decided to go on to a more sort of official journalism program.
And there is the Flying Onions published either every other week or every other week or once a month, depending on when, and it covers things from current events to things happening. And then there is the broadcast journalism course that's offered now, and they do a monthly newscast that is played in special homeroom through the advisory program. So that's an actual video where the kids deliver the news and the combination of the journalism with the video production.
And I think the Flying Onion is in the Danvers Herald.
Yeah, it's in the Danvers Herald, which is great. Thank you to them for doing that.
Absolutely. Great. Terrific. Thanks.
Eric, so this is everything in school is, as we talk about every month for the last decade or so, is way better than when we went to school, right?
Yes, indeed.
Except for one thing. The best class that I ever took, what was it? Do you know what it was?
Sports writing.
Sports
Tom
writing.
Patel.
So 42 years ago, I had sports writing with Mr. Patel. It was the best class I ever had in any of the schools I ever went to in my entire life. So Ezra, you would love that class. We need to come up with a sports writing class. That's what we need. Yeah. One of you guys can take it, right?
Only if you can bring back Mr. Patel to teach it, I think, Arthur.
I don't know. I think these guys got it covered.
I think they can help, but no. So A couple of things. Number one, I've read some of the stuff that the kids did, but I also want to say to you guys, you came up with this program. It's to me, it's creative, it's ingenious, it's great. I mean, it engages the kids. So you deserve a lot of credit for coming up with something that's a little bit different and gets the kids really into something and gets them to want to write and talk about things that are going on. And you know, you talk about the fact that the writing doesn't have to be perfect, but you know what? You don't need to have perfect writing. You need to be able to say something and say it with passion and feeling, and that's what these kids have done. So I think it's great. And again, I say this a lot again, and I'll go back to you again because you say it too. Every once in a while, you go to a budget hearing or you go to the FinCom, and you'll get somebody who says, "Yeah, what are you doing over there? Nothing's going on over there. You know, why are we spending the money?" But you know, if you come to these meetings, almost every month we have something like this, which is something that's really, I don't want to say it's totally out of the box, but something that's engaging the kids, that's creative, that there's clear passion for by the teachers. The kids love it. It's just continuous that we see this every month. So another great example tonight. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it, all three of you. Thanks for coming in and telling us about this.
Thanks for having me.
You're here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's the most I've heard you talking.
Because I
like
really
a year.
I know. It's like,
You got it.
thank you, guys.
I was into it.
I hear you.
All right. So we're moving on to the strategic plan update, I believe.
Mrs. Wormers will provide us a strategic plan update and the connections with, we're going to try to use less acronyms, so the Essex County Learning Community Grant.
That's right. So, I know. Well, part of the work I've been trying to do is find a way to communicate everything we've been doing with the strategic plan and with the grant. And so this graphic or this chart that I've put together kind of does that. But today, we're seeing the presentations, they really speak. They bring it alive. They bring the work that we are doing alive, the work that we are striving to do. So today, engage students is one of our strategic objectives, and that was so clear today with the high school presentation, and then also with the students at Highland schools, that the kids, it is a student, both are student-centered learning experiences that they get to have. They have voice and choice in the work they are doing. So it's just, I've been struggling to come up with like a graphic to really show, like I'd love a picture to show what this work is all about. And that's kind of what we're working towards right now. An intermediate step is this chart that we created. But again, the presentations that have been coming, especially tonight, really show that work well. So we have been doing a lot of work because we have that Essex County Learning Community Grant. And it really was very timely because it came right at the time that we were working to put together the new strategic plan. We'd done all that visioning with Frank Locker, and at the same time, this RFP for the grant came out, and it matched what had come out of the visioning with Frank. And it really has helped us put our strategic plan together. And again, I thank you for in August for letting us present a framework of it, because with the first phase of the grant, we really worked on putting an action plan together to say we were going to take that framework that we presented in August and present an action plan that we're going to do over the next 5 years to make hopefully the vision of the strategic plan come alive. So that was a lot of the work we did in the first phase of the grant, which ended in December. Last month, we presented that action plan quickly. I mean, we had the budget meeting. There was a lot on our plate. But what I thought we would do today is just look quickly at the work we're doing from now and through the end of the school year, through the summer, that we'll be doing for work. So this chart, is headed by the mission and vision, because that's what's guiding our work, especially the vision that we have for kids. And that vision has really pushed us in the three objectives that we have there. The three objectives are safe and supportive learning environments, coherent curriculum instruction and assessment, and engaged students. So each one of those objectives is a column. So if you look down the column, you're going to see the different work that we're doing. And I also put in the teams of teachers and administrators that are working together to make that work come alive in the district right now. So under safe and supportive learning environments, as you heard in one of the reports from the schools, we have Leading Together. That's that we've been working with the Center of Courage and Renewal. And each school has a team that really works on the adult SEL, building that relational trust amongst the adults in a building. So that's some of the first work that had actually started before the strategic plan and continues through it. Then we have 2 groups of teachers that are on the Essex County Learning Community Grant topical teams. They were our teacher researchers. So they went to these grant meetings and researched deeply in their topic areas. There was one on social emotional learning, and then there was one on cultural proficiency. Cultural proficiency, we're going to really merge into the social emotional learning work. So they're together on this objective. But the cultural proficiency is also through, you're going to see through our multi-tiered systems of supports as well. But they are really working hard with us to bring forward the social emotional learning in Danvers. We're excited to announce that on March 28th, we're going to take a Frank Locker-esque approach to visioning for social emotional learning in Danvers, and we're going to have a community visioning day. And we're going to be gathering, we're hoping about 45 to 50 members of the Danvers community. We're talking students, teachers, administrators, parents, and then community members. So we have, just like we did with Frank to do the visioning for the strategic plan, we're really looking forward to working with a woman from our grant work. She'll be the facilitator. Her name's Ramona Trevino. So she will work and help us create a vision for social emotional learning in Danvers, and then put together a guiding principles, which will act as a framework for the social emotional learning we're doing for the remainder of our strategic plan. So that's exciting. And then looking forward to kicking off school next year, we're really looking at social emotional learning being a big part of the professional learning that we do as a community, as Danvers Public Schools together to start the school year off. So that's that strategic objective. Do you have any questions before I continue on to each one? I figured I'll ask before.
Yeah. Anybody now? Just go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, good. So then the second one is we really wanted to shore up the foundation of our strong and coherent curriculum instruction assessment base that we have in Danvers. So that is a lot of the work here. And you'll see the groups that are working with us from the grant. We just started last Friday a professional development series with the grant people at Endicott College on MTSS, which is called the Multi-Tiered System of Supports. And that's really working on making sure all students are making progress and succeeding academically in our schools. So we really take a strong look at like reading and writing, and then in mathematics as part of this process. And we're working with the 5 other school districts that are in the grant, so Rockport, Swampscott, Gloucester, Beverly, and Haverhill, to kind of all share our thoughts on frameworks, and then we have 2 experts coming in to lead us on how to develop a strong framework in our school district. The base, the tiered instruction, you probably have heard of this, is three tiers. Tier 1 is the regular classroom, and that all the work that we should be doing is really having a strong curriculum to work with students. And we're using the FAR cycles to connect the other work we're doing in the district to really monitor the progress of students at Tier 1. So then we can see if students are in need of some intervention, and hopefully what we are doing is actually intervening in the moment or intervening the next day as regular ed teachers doing that. And then we work through the tiers. If a student needs extra support, again, all teachers can be providing this extra support in Tier 2 and Tier 3. After Tier 3, we would then, if a student hasn't been successful with interventions and more intensive instruction, then we would recommend them for testing for special education. But we're really going to work on really solidifying those tiers and really provide good interventions so that we can work to strengthen that process so that the step of struggling in the classroom doesn't just jump to special education right away. So that's some really strong work we're doing, and we're looking forward to the next 5 years because it's going to take a while to really bring that up. We have a good system in elementary school, but a little bit weaker in the secondary because that isn't as easy to do the interventions in the scheduling and everything. So we're going to be working to really kind of put in some solid systems in place as we move through the school year. So that's our second objective. And the last one, I really don't have to say a lot after our presentations, but that engaged students and that, the voice and choice, the student agency is so important to us. and we are really moving forward with project-based learning. Frank Locker's visioning, that came out as a loud and clear recommendation by the community and students and teachers. So we are starting this year at the Holton Richmond Middle School. They have a project-based learning study group that Ellen Farrick has been running, the curriculum director, and that's going to culminate with a summer institute. We've contracted with a outside company called the Buck Institute, and they're like the gold standard of helping you develop project-based learning units. So they'll be coming in July. I think July 15th is the first day of that institute. They'll come for 3 days and help us develop true project-based learning units. And so we're very excited about that. We're opening it up to K-12 teachers. We're looking for teachers from Danvers High and a few from the elementary level to also participate in that institute. So they're going to work with us for 3 days, then leave us. Then we're going to have, Keith's going to work with us on flexible learning spaces, because he's done so much work with the Smith School and how important that is to the engagement of students and the project-based learning experience. And then we're going to have another day just to finalize all those last-minute details so that they're ready to implement in the school year. The Buck Institute will come back and coach the teachers through when they are implementing these units. They're also going to be available, via email or phone to do some technical assistance along the way if that's needed. So those are the big hits that we have. I mean, I really think both part of Objective 2 and 3 is that strong student-centered curriculum. We're really working on teaching that more student-centered rather than teacher-directed, and I think that's a big shift that we've been working on in the last few years. I think hopefully you've seen some of that in the presentations that have happened here at school committee. So there you go.
Any questions for Mary, Jeff?
No, I mean, the only thing I do question is the curriculum, because we talk a little bit about that, and it seems like the curriculum is more evolutionary, I would say, than revolutionary. I feel like the things that we do in 1 and 3 are really just very new and just very, very revolutionary. But I think curriculum, we can't just, take a new curriculum and place it in. And we talk about this a lot. It's just more of a comment. So it's just more of a thank you for having a blend between the two, right? Because you can't just say, we're going to just revolutionize everything. Right. But I think curriculum, from what I've seen, is evolving, and, we are looking at different aspects of improving. And so certainly thanks to you and to the teachers for that collaboration. So while it is student-centered, I think a lot of the teachers also have something to contribute a lot to that curriculum, and I think that's helped a lot.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Actually, it's a lot harder to teach in a student-centered manner than in a teacher-directed
exactly,
manner.
Yeah, and
so
we've
there's
talked
a
about
lot
that
of
before
planning
too,
that goes on behind the scenes by the teachers to be able to implement the curriculum effectively.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing the results, though, too, now from that. So it's a long process, but I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks. Dave?
Yeah, it's a shame you don't have anything going on. My only question is if there's, if one of the 3 people that are watching this on DCAT is interested in getting involved in that community day, do they reach out to you, or how does that work?
Lisa, Keith, or myself would.
Okay.
Yeah, we're working on putting that together.
Okay, great. Thank you.
More people watch on DCAT than you'll ever know.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kidding.
7 or 8. Eric?
What I like about what I see here is that everything, you put it all together, you sort of take that sky view of this, and it's all about improving the quality of education and supporting the teachers who are delivering it, and engaging the students and supporting them in terms of what their learning is supposed to be like. I also think clearly we've committed to a direction in terms of the project-based learning, and trying to stick with that long enough to see how it really plays out. At some level, I don't know if it's revolutionary, but you have to take a chance sometimes. We took a bit of a chance with some of the MCAS testing methods a few years ago, and sort of being on the forefront of using computer-based testing in Park, and sometimes you never know how that's going to come out. So I appreciate the willingness to sort of take an educated chance on a direction you think is really going to work well for the students. So this all looks very integrated. I think, what I see is something going in the right direction. So.
Thanks, Eric. Mary Beth?
Thank you, Mary, for the update. And looking at this, it's
definitely a team effort. So it encompasses everyone, not only the students, the teachers, the community. So definitely, I think, again, we're going in the right direction, and look forward to, future results with it. So thank you.
And I think the strength of all three is that we do have a team of teachers and administrators working to move each one of these objectives forward. So without that collaboration, I don't think it would be moving forward as well as it's been moving, as fast or as well as it's been moving forward. So it's been really great to have these teacher teams in place to do the planning and make this work come alive.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. All right. Facilities.
So we have an update on both the Smith School and the Highland School. So for the Smith School, we have officially signed our project funding agreement with MSBA and received the executed documents back from them. So that means we're officially on the hook for their portion of the money. And we have our not to exceed amount, which we still hope to be below. The construction manager was introduced to the school building committee at our last meeting. There was a meeting with MSBA, the design team, as well as that construction manager at the architect's office in Boston to really go over the design development review and do a construction kickoff. Since the town meeting did approve the funding, the other detailed meetings are going fast and furious. We've met about commissioning on the new building and having an energy efficient building. There's been a security meeting, a regulatory meeting to look at the different Conservation Commission aspects and other needs out of public safety, as well as a playground meeting. Our next meeting will be on Friday morning of the school building committee, and there the construction manager will do a more detailed introduction of themselves, as well as their initial planning for the start of the construction process, which will actually kick off with an early package this summer with some of the site work up at Smith School. So it's going fast and it's really exciting. For the Highland School, MSBA did approve, again, their project scope and budget for the Highlands roof replacement as part of the accelerated repair program. And we'll be working with Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, and Town Meeting this year to seek additional funding for that project. When we went in and started to really dig into the details of what it looked like, there was an additional scope of work that we found that was kind of unanticipated. So the estimated cost is higher than what we thought last year. So we'll be going back for an additional appropriation. MSBA's grant is larger in return. So because that information was found out early enough, MSBA is still looking at their, roughly 50% of cost for that project.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Keith? Everybody good? All right. Thanks for that. And now we'll have a public hearing and vote on school choice.
The superintendent recommends the school committee vote not to accept school choice students for the 2019-20 school year.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. This is a public hearing, so I'll open it up to members of the public if anybody would like to comment on this. I don't think I hear anything, so we'll move right on. Does anybody on the committee have any comments or questions?
Just that this is a vote we tend to take each year, and we rely on the administration essentially to recommend to us whether or not it makes sense for us to accept school choice. And the issue for us typically is one of space. Once you accept a student into the system by way of school choice, you have to be able to guarantee that student a spot through the rest of their school years, as I understand it. So we are not, overblown with space right now. Maybe that'll change in the future and we can take a different look at it. But at the moment, it does not make sense, at least in my view, to accept school choice students.
Right, and based on our forecasted enrollment growth with the Smith project, space is not something we see will be a luxury in the near future.
All right, so anybody else have any comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we will not accept school choice students for the next school year. Unfinished business. We have the final adoption of the FY20 budget.
The superintendent recommends the approval of the FY20 budget.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We had a public hearing last month. We also presented this to the selectmen on Saturday. Does anybody have any additional comments or statements? Eric?
Yes, I think just for the public, The motion is ultimately, we're voting on a proposed $42,317,094 budget. Represents a 2.98 increase over fiscal year 19. Very favorably compares to the other town departments. In fact, I believe it's lower than the percentage increase of the central government and library, which is no critique of either of those departments, because they, particularly library, wonderful presentation on Saturday. Looking at the budget, and we talked about it last month, at least again, in my view, Mr. Chairman, there's not a lot here beyond covering contractual agreements and tweaking some placement of positions, essentially, so that we have the right personnel in the right place to do the jobs we need to do as efficiently as possible. So I commend Dr. Dana and all of you for the budget that you put together this year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Eric. Anybody else? Okay. If there's no further discussion, then all those in favor of approving the FY20 budget, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. So we have approved that. Thank you. Policy.
The superintendent recommends the approval of sections I and J as per MASC for a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Once again, this is consistent with what we've done with the other sections, I think, over the past several months. There's really nothing of substance that is being changed there, and I think we're just kind of going through with what has been proposed. You agree, Dave?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. 2019-2020 school calendar early release days.
You missed one.
We've
Oh,
new
I'm
business
sorry.
policy.
New business. I missed the policy. That's because, you know why? That's because policy is there twice, and I
Right.
was confused. All right, so let's go to that, the new business. Policy. Go ahead, Keith.
The superintendent recommends the approval of sections K and L as per MASC for a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I'll just echo what you just said about the
Okay.
last section. This is, it's basically just changing some words, here and there. No substantive changes at all to either of these sections.
Okay. All those in favor for a first reading say aye.
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 Okay. Now, the 2019-20 school calendar early release days.
The superintendent recommends the approval of the 2019-20 school calendar / early release days for a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do you have anything you'd like to point out about the calendar this year?
Just a quick overview. So we are teachers again returning on the Wednesday before Labor Day for the Wednesday, Thursday. Students will return on Wednesday the 4th as they have done in past years. We're looking at moving the parent-teacher conference day from where it was in December to the first Tuesday after the first Monday, which is what aligns with the national election each year. So by moving it there and using that as the methodology as to where it will be, will allow us to have no students at Danvers High School for national elections this upcoming year and in future years. Looking at the holiday break in December, with the 24th being on a Tuesday, we're looking at closing as of Friday the 20th and not coming back for just that Monday. So the break will start a little bit earlier on that end, and then we'll return on January 2nd on the Thursday. And then for March 3rd, we're proposing an e-learning day for Danvers High School only. So this will be kind of our entree into what was Blizzard Bags, or exploring that idea, which could be used for snow days as well, but will allow the high school to not have students present during the national primary. So this will be the primary that will determine the national presidential candidates for the following November. So we do anticipate it to be a busy day looking at what that landscape looks like now. And then the last day of school is scheduled for June 17th with no snow days.
Thanks, Keith. Comments, questions? Jeff, anything?
No, I think this is well thought out. With the elections, absolutely. So,
Dave?
We talked about this in our policy meeting. I think the November 5th is really smart because not only, is it allowing space for parking and everything here at the high school, but hopefully, parents are coming to the high school anyways to vote, so they'll take that extra time to meet with their their child's teachers. So it's not two separate trips to the high school. They can do it all in one shot. And then it'll be really interesting to see on this e-learning day on March 3rd how that, works, and, hopefully be able to implement something like that, as Keith said, for, those years where we have just a tremendous number of snow days and don't want to be going to school in the middle of July.
All right, thanks, Dave. Eric, anything?
No, I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mary Beth, anything?
Do you know how the e-learning day is going to work?
We do not. Okay. We've had an initial conversation with the Teachers Association actually today, and there are other districts, so Pentucket, Burlington, Masco, that have them already in place. So we'll be reaching out to those districts to look at what it really looks like. So we'll do that over the course of this spring to get ready for next school year.
Great. All right. Very good. Thank you.
All right. So all those in favor of the calendar for first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. So that is approved. And now fundraising requests.
The superintendent recommends the approval of fundraising events for a family bingo night on April 11th, 2019, run by the Football Boosters, a Yankee Candle fundraiser by Riverside School in April 2019, and DHS Best Buddies to sell raffle tickets throughout March.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Everybody good? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. And we have a field trip, correct, Keith?
We do. So we have one last minute addition for DECA. They just got back from States on Saturday night, and happy to say that they have 26 students that qualified for the international tournament competition, not tournament competition, which will be in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, nice.
So the superintendent recommends the approval of the overnight/out-of-state field trip request from DECA to travel to Orlando, Florida from April 27th, 2019 to May 2nd, 2019 to compete at international competition.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, they can go.
Congratulations, Decker.
Yes, well done.
Communications.
NEC.
I think this is. I think their minutes are on their website.
Okay.
As
Caught you, Keith.
We don't belong to this.
Yeah, do you have any other communications?
We
All right,
do not.
good. Move on to legislation. Do you have any
I have
legislation?
nothing to report this
All
month.
right, then
Mr.
we'll
Chairman.
move on to DEEP.
Deep's monthly meeting is this Wednesday at 7:45 at First Ipswich Bank. Also, just like to remind teachers that the Deep Teacher Grant application is open and will close March 29th. So time to get those applications in. And that's it.
Thanks. Danvers Cares?
Danvers Cares, two things to mention. One is the Family Workshop Series continues. So this Wednesday, there is one on positive coping strategies. That is, of course, at the Gordon Room in the Peabody Institute Library from 6 to 7:30. Also of interest, and I know this one has been getting a lot of buzz, is the Vaping Seminar, which is taking place at DHS Thursday at 6:30 p.m. So a couple people have asked me about it. It will be good. I've seen some previews of it as well. So vaping is serious. A lot of our students are doing it. I think we've seen some of the statistics on it. As prevalent as it is in high school, it is even more prevalent in college. So if you have students who are going to college, you're going to want to see this as well. So absolutely, again, 6:30 at the high school.
Okay, thanks.
And the Teen Health and Safety Guide will be in the April
11th issue of the Danvers Herald, so we can talk about that next month. And the interesting thing, just to add about the vaping seminar on Thursday night, Lyle from Danvers Cares and Judith Ryan, the town nurse, are going to set up an in plain sight room, which, for those who aren't aware, is it's set up like a teenager's bedroom with all different kinds of things where you can hide paraphernalia that they shouldn't be having.
That's good.
It's really interesting.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've done policy. I don't, does anybody know when the next Cpac meeting is? I do not know. If not, we'll it's on the website. So,
April. Oh no, never mind. April 4th is a different event.
yeah, that's all right. And human rights.
Human rights, I just want to highlight a couple of the things that the committee focuses on. One was International Women's Day, which recently happened, as well as a variety of other UN-sponsored initiatives as well. So be on the lookout for more coming from that group.
Okay, minutes.
I move to approve and release the minutes from the February 11th, 2019 school committee meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, budget.
Before you have the monthly budget report for the month of February, happy to report that we remain on budget. We also have one donation tonight, so we'd like to thank the Joseph Middlemiss Big Heart Foundation, who donated a buddy bench to the Thorpe School. So we're thankful to them, and that'll be installed in the spring.
All right, and personnel.
Before you have the monthly resignations, hiring, and leaves of absences.
Okay. What do we have for upcoming meetings?
April 8th.
April 8th. And what is our FinCom meeting?
April 10th.
April 10th. Okay. All right. Does anybody else have anything else?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, Danvers.